Chair Willis,
Here.
Vice Chair Pease,
Here.
Board Member Bauer,
Here.
Board Member Henrik,
Here.
Board Member McKinnon is absent. Board Member Wimmer.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any oral communications?
Chair Willis, we do not have any oral communications.
Okay, thank you. So agenda changes. Does anybody have any agenda changes?
No.
So I, for one, would recommend we move the approval of minutes to the beginning of the meeting. Do we need any thoughts on that? Amy?
Oh, are you speaking specifically for this meeting, or you think for agendas going forward?
I think, well, I would like it generally going forward.
It's not a
Fine.
problem. We can,
Okay, and can we move it for today?
yes.
Okay. So does anybody have any comments on the minutes from last week? Not last week, like June, if you can remember that far. Nothing? Okay, I have to find mine. Sorry.
Well, I'll move to approve the minutes while you're looking, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you. I think there was just one thing. Oh,
I'll second that.
Amy, will you remind me where they are in this?
Oh,
91, 921.
they're on page 103.
Thank you. 103. Okay. So on page 105, past was written as a word rather than an organization. So capital PAST. If we could correct that. And I just need a clarification. At the bottom of page 106, what is ESA? Well, now I should probably know this.
Can you read the context? I'm not looking at the minutes at the moment.
Board Member Shepherd went on to comment that, and we were talking about, I guess Board Member Shepherd was just talking generally about historic Stanford and blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
So went on to comment, thinking about what to do with their retreats and planning, the board might consider ESA. We did a
Yeah.
nice 30-minute.
That's a firm. I think environmental science, it stands for, it's an acronym for a environmental consulting firm who does CEQA work.
Thank you very much. Environmental services. Okay, and then can we just amend the motion to correct past?
Of course.
Okay, and do we need a second again? Please.
Second.
Thanks, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Chair Willis, the current city policy is we have to take a roll call vote for virtual meetings.
Oh, so we need to do roll call. Oh,
Yes.
okay, sorry, I just thought it was voice. Thank you for the clarification. Will you please do that for us?
Yes. Board Member Bauer,
I approve.
Board Member Hendrick,
Aye.
Board Member McKinnon is absent. Vice Chair Pease,
Aye.
Board Member Wimmer,
Aye.
Chair Willis.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. So schedule of meetings. I think one of the things we should do at our retreat is set up the meetings for all of next year. So we're not going moment by moment here. But also, can we nail down our retreat date? Are we go with that? So October 28th. Are we all, well, I know David's not available, hopefully.
No, I will, actually, I will be available.
Perfect.
Oh, yay.
Yay. So does that mean the babies have already shown up? No.
No, we just canceled our trip.
Sorry to hear that. So we have a retreat on October 28th. I would like to have one more meeting before the end of the year. I'd sort of like to get on to a once a month plan, so we can start making some progress in some direction that we will decide at our retreat. So is there, it seems like December 9th is the logical choice. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Okay, so on your schedule of meetings, retreat on October 28th and a meeting on the December 9th, and we can cancel the other meetings unless something comes up. Is that okay? Thank you. On the retreat, Amy, do you want to talk briefly about your report? Or
Sure, yeah. I have a PowerPoint so we can have something to look at. One thing on the, I support your going with October 28th and December 9th. We do have one or two projects filed or about to be filed. And so the possibility exists that there's a November, it's just that those two November meetings are holidays. So between, yeah, just the luck of the draw. So between Thanksgiving and whatever the other one is. Veterans Day. Yeah, that's it. So if need be, you know, we could take a poll in October to see if there's an alternate date. And on that note, I'll also say that today, it just so happens that we have a short meeting and the ARB is going to meet after us around 10 o'clock today. So, and I'll be at that meeting as well. And what they're going to talk about is every 5 years, there's the Arb Design Awards. And in the past, there have been historic, rehab projects and additions and such that have been on the winning ticket. And so this is a every 5 year program with the ARB. So you might have interest in, what they come up with. It could be another historic project. I don't know. So I'll just share my screen now. Okay. And oops. Grab the, okay. And let me make sure I got the right, I'm always like, where's the button?
Yeah, you're sharing your screen. You just got to put up the presentation now.
Yeah, okay. But is that the full screen?
That's not full screen yet. It's still
Okay.
in like a regular
That's
screen.
the problem. I was trying to do that, but I'm looking up here at the buttons. I don't see the buttons.
So I think you have to go back to your presentation.
Okay. It's a PDF, excuse me.
And then at the top, you have the button that says view, top left.
Oh.
View, I'll click up and go to full screen mode.
Ah, excellent. Technology. Okay. So I have uploaded the potential agenda for the October 28th retreat. This was, Chair Willis, would you like to present this? This was something that Chair Willis sent over, the 6 topics. And then I have if there are other topics the board wishes to add to this.
Okay, sounds good.
So
introductions, I just thought, since Gogo and I are new, it'd be nice for us to share a little bit, all of us, to share a little bit about ourselves and how we became interested in preservation, just to get to know our team a little better. I'd like for us all to be a little goal-oriented this year. So I'd like people to think before the retreat about what their goals might be for the HRB to accomplish in 2022, and I'd like to keep that, I mean, they can be tiny. I just would like to have some attainable goals. The Mills Act, I think, there's been a lot of work done. It was nice to get that information. I think there's still more information I'd like on that, but I'd like for us to decide how to proceed. I think we should talk about that a little bit today, but not so much discuss it or make any decisions as to just throw out our thoughts so that we can be in a position to make some decisions and have a serious discussion when we do meet for our retreat, which I'm really hoping we can do in person. Christian did a really nice presentation, thoughtful comments on how we should document our historic buildings. And I think that that's a really good way to have, even our buildings that are standing, we've all gotten so used to the web and it's quite unobtrusive as far as people's lives. So I think we should really think about what kind of documentation we want to do for our historic buildings. The survey that was done in 1998-2000, it seems to just be floating out there in the stratosphere. And I think we as a group should decide how to move forward with it. Does it just stay in limbo and get reviewed as some projects come up? Do we want to take pieces of it and assess it? Think about how we could approach it. And then the fun part, I think we should think about what kind of blogs or workshops or what we can do to encourage preservation in Palo Alto. Does anybody have other ideas or want to toss out one of mine that's really not useful? Nope. Okay. So Amy, you want to move on?
Yeah, sure. I know Vin received some correspondence from Mike McKinnon that he had a topic of interest for the retreat, but he's not here to speak to it. So I don't know what what it is.
Well, does Vin know? Oh, Vin's not here either. Okay.
I don't think he was specific. I thought he was planning to come today via telephone.
Okay. I'll follow up with Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have just some other slides here for fun that includes Mills Act items. So not to have a deep discussion, but just to make sure everyone in the public and the board are aware that the documents that I transmitted with this packet were intended to assist some basic background fundamentals of the Mills Act, as well as the draft effort. So Vice Chair Pease's memo is in the packet. There's some links in the staff report to our web pages, which are have extensive information. And then just a brief note about the upcoming webinar by CAMP. It's a CLG training. So I'll just, because Chair Willis had said it might be good to have just a brief conversation on the Mills Act, just basics, right? So this is what a Mills Act is for the public and folks that may not know. It's an economic incentive program for owners of listed, basically historic buildings. And these can be listed on the National Register, State Register, our local register, or other register. I guess county might have a register. Then we had two Mills Act contract, of course. We now only have one, and that, the Squire House, was modified back in 2016, I believe, to remove the requirement for annual public tours through the house. The owner wanted to remove that. And the council just, and some on the board might remember, was almost did not renew that contract, but they did in the end. And they expressed, that they do want to have, consider a Mills Act program. So then this is just the basic history on that. This was in your packet, page 776. What happened in 1997 was the council directed staff and the HRB to, come up with appropriate policies and procedures, and to not accept applications for Mills Act until, those were in place. And so then back in 2006, staff, Dennis Backlund, brought forward a draft policy. This thing happened with the Squire House in 2016, and council reaffirmed the need for us to address this. Then in 2017, we had professional historic preservation staff who worked with a subcommittee of HRB members and came up with what's in your packet on page 10 to 19, which is the tailored program outline. So it kind of stopped there. Emily Vance, some of you may remember her, she left in March 2018, and it pretty much stopped there, that effort, and has been brought up since, but not worked on. I just thought I would also mention, in the interim, since 2018, there is a California tax credit program that was, news is that it was fully funded for 2022. So that is something that's available to folks. Again, there are requirements that the properties be listed resources. And so those would not apply to our eligible resources, or potentially eligible resources. So I don't know if you wanted to talk more about the Mills Act. I do have other slides just related to, just basically the other things on the agenda for the retreat. But does anyone want to?
I have a couple of comments.
Yep.
So one is on the California Historic Tax Credit. I have not seen it in writing, but somebody told me there was a $200,000 income limit, which might knock out most of Palo Alto.
Probably.
But we need to do some research on that one if anybody's motivated. And then going back to the Mills Act. Other cities have done it on a trial basis, which seems like maybe we want to retreat back to that. I'm just going to throw things out because I don't really want to have an in-depth discussion right now, but I want to share my ideas so that when we do have our discussion, we've also kind of been thinking along the same lines. We don't have a historic preservation planner, which is heavily referred to in the staff report. So we need to, I guess, modify the staff response to council, which I don't even know if council has seen. I'm curious whether they actually ever saw that one.
Are you asking Chair Willis about the tailored program outline?
Yes.
Because that has not moved forward. That was the effort that since David, Board Member Bauer is here, he can elaborate. I believe Board Member Wimmer was also on that. There was a third person who I think is no longer on the board, but they could elaborate as far as, what was contemplated as next steps.
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a very brief comment about that. So as board members read this proposed policy that Margaret and I and Brendan Corey worked on 4 years ago, it was an outline that we were trying to complete to bring to the board. The red, all of the language in red is the languages, those paragraphs are areas where we were uncertain about how to proceed. So they were undecided, not that we had decided any of it, but those are areas we didn't fully build out. Also, all of the language in that proposal would have to be modified to meet today's current circumstances. And since we don't have a planner, then that wouldn't happen. So there are some things, and I have to say I was very discouraged to see that Chair Willis was on the board in 1997, 24 years ago when this was brought up. It's just, crazy. You know, Palo Alto's got to do better than this. It can't wait 25 years to answer questions that need to be answered. And we've got a whole long list of them that I think sadly is a very bad look for our city. Anyway, I think at the retreat, we probably could, as a board, flesh this out enough to get it before the board and then review it and then move it on. I'd like to remind board members that having a Mills Act program does not mean that the city will actually use it. There's a lot of concern that this will pull money away from much needed programs in other parts of the city and of course the school district. Having the Mills Act program will allow the council to make decisions, to make, I think, better decisions about the one contract we have or future contracts. But it is the city council's decision-making that determines how much money gets spent or is not spent. So I think that's an important distinction in moving this forward.
Thank you.
I have a comment. Thanks for clearing that up. It seems to me from reading these documents that the real kicker here was the concern about funding the schools. So I think whatever we do, we need to understand what today's reality is with respect to the potential impact on school property tax revenues, and try to find a way to make that data, when we find it, distill it down so it's understandable and we also know it's credible. Seems to me that these comments were made, many of them, and the decisions a long time ago. The environment has changed economically, it's changing now. But I did do a little bit of research, and it appears to me that the school boards, or the Palo Alto Unified Schools, enrollment has dropped about 6% over the last 4 academic years. Its costs have dropped because its enrollment is less. But nonetheless, the basis of the assessments for property tax in Palo Alto continue to go up because they're based on the sale price. And they've actually seen an increase in property tax revenues. So at least that's important stuff to look at because schools are a big issue in Palo Alto. And I think we ought to have some kind of analysis where we are comfortable, if we're going to take this to the council, around that particular issue, because it seems to me it's likely to come up again. Thank you.
Carolyn, could I make a comment to follow on Kristen's remarks, which I think are absolutely spot on. Last time I checked, and I don't want to get down in the weeds in this, every dollar of property taxes is divided up between the school district, which gets the biggest share at 45%. This was last year or year before that I heard that number. The smallest amount is the city of Palo Alto, which got about 9%. The state gets some and the county gets some. So if you take the $150,000 amount that we are proposing, that this proposal suggests the city spend as a maximum, the actual property tax, the tax consequence of $150,000 of property tax redirection means that the school district would have $67,500 less money in a budget that I think last time I looked again, it was several years ago, was $365 million. That is, that's probably the amount of money, well, that doesn't even begin to approach the amount of money the district wasted on law firms 2 years ago investigating the two principals. It's just dumbfounding how much money. And there's another example. I want to make this point. My house currently has a $5,000 property tax amount because I'm a pre-Prop 13 homeowner. So the school district gets $2,250. My house is going to sell, I hope, in sometime this month. When it does, the district will then get $27,000 as just an estimate of property taxes. And that's happening all over the city. And there's all kinds of information about this. People who have lived a long time in Palo Alto, like me, pay very, very low rates. And when we sell, the property taxes rise dramatically. And that's a huge income boost for both, mostly for the school district. So what we're proposing here in this Mills Act has a very, very, very infinitesimal impact on any school revenue. And they're just, it's dumbfounding for me to think they have $365 million or more probably by now. There are lots of things that they need to do, but nonetheless, this is a small thing that Palo Alto can afford to do.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that just really briefly going forward. I also question at $150,000 the usefulness of actually going through this work. And I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, if you've done a kitchen remodel in Palo Alto, it's not very much money. But we have two state housing projects that are bills that are probably going to be signed by the governor, SB 9 and SB 10. I think these are going to put tremendous pressure on preservation of historic properties, especially small properties on fairly good sized lots. I think the incentives for building multi-unit housing are going to be very high in terms of investment. Also, with the move possibly to require electrification of homes, which I've spent some time looking into, I think this will be particularly another disincentive to preserve a historic house because it's a lot more than a cooking lesson. I mean, I did some thumbnails on this, and this could wind up in, for example, my home costing about $150,000 when I'm done with it. So I think these create real disincentives for preservation. And I wonder what $150,000 is a total set aside for incentives to preserve things, how effective that's going to be. So I just think we really need to look at this, figure out how much work it is, and whether we really believe we're going to get much traction and what it's going to mean. That's just my take on it at this point, which is a pretty early one.
Good to know. Good to hear. Any other thoughts? Margaret walked away. But any other thoughts on the Mills Act? Okay. Amy, I think it would be nice if we could get a current PAUSD budget, just so we have that, the same thing for all of us when we're looking at it, rather than the 2006, 2007. Maybe update ourselves a little bit.
I had a quick question. Sorry. I know that we talk at length about the school district, and we just expect them to give us pushback on this. But have we really officially approached them? Is it really up to them, or I guess it's up to the city council? So if we are proposing to create a program that takes money away from the school district, the school district would go to the council and oppose our efforts. I mean, I guess we're expecting that to happen, but do we have any evidence that that actually would happen? And I agree that the amount of money that would be taken away from the school district with I feel like the rare number of people who are going to step forward and want to participate in the Mills Act, because the Mills Act is a really arduous task. It's not like free money. I mean, these people have to document it. They have to file. It's just like doing your taxes, right? I would guess. And who likes to do that? So I'm just saying that I think that the number of people who are legitimately interested, educated about it, and willing to participate in the Mills Act is probably a relatively low number, I'm guessing, unless somehow we make it miraculously easy for them to do this. But I think I feel like we've put in all this effort. Maybe we should somehow move it forward to a place where can this actually happen? Yes, there might be pushback, but I don't think that should prevent us from just assuming that we could go forward with it. Does that make sense?
I think it does. I think, to me, we should get to a point where we know enough to make a judgment about whether we want to take it to the council. That's all I'm saying. I think we're all in favor of it intuitively. But I'd like to look at this in a pretty clear-eyed way because it's a considerable amount of work, and it's largely done by us without much staff support. So I think we just need to get enough in place to begin to really understand, because if we're going to have a limited number of goals we want to accomplish, then we need things that we we believe we can accomplish. I'm all for the Mills Act getting put in place, but that's just kind of my take on how we use our time and effort.
Well, and I agree with you, Christian, that it's not just the arduous task of the historic homeowner. It's the amount of paperwork and processing of documents that's required by the city. So we have to also, I mean, we should almost more focus on who's going to do that. How's that going to happen? Because that's going to probably give us more pushback than the school district. I mean, is there that person to be able to do that? But my thought was, I mean, if we really want to sort of launch this program, my thought was to find, poll a few people. I guess to be fair, you have to poll everyone and maybe get 1 to no more than 3 property owners who want to participate in like a pilot program and try, because yes, we have one Mills Act that's been going on forever. But to train, it's like having a program, like train them, see and get their feedback and maybe taper the program as we witness these property owners actively participating and going through this program. Because, for us to establish here are the rules from the get-go, I think we have to be able to sort of change it as we move through with a sort of a pilot program, is what I'm saying.
I support that idea.
I'm sorry. I think these are all good ideas. It just means we really need in this workshop, this is going to take a considerable amount of time to sort of lay the baseline of our thinking. I guess that's what we have to kind of be aware of. And
at our retreat.
Yeah, at our retreat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, I would just weigh in here that if there are additional, because I've heard get the PAUSD budget, current budget, if I can get that. If there are additional documents that you all would like to keep this on the retreat, let me know. I think we should not talk too much further today on the matter because it was just agendized as a potential retreat topic. So
I would like that data that what we really need is a 5 or 10 year trend line because there's uncertainty in all taxes and we're going to have to address that. So a single year is kind of interesting going forward here because of this phenomenon of the declining enrollment. But if we had at least a 5-year take on that, and I found on the Unified School District website at least a 5-year enrollment trend. So I have that data, but I've not been able so far to figure out all the tax revenue stuff. And it's also skewed by the pandemic relief funds that went into the school district recently. So.
All right.
1 year is not enough.
Yeah, if I could say one other thing, this is a program that could potentially benefit a homeowner or a property owner for 10 years. So there isn't enough money in the initial property tax redirection to really do any significant work, but over a period of time, it was envisioned, I think by Margaret and Brandon and myself, there would be enough money. And that is an incentive for people to do it and also protects the city's revenue streams from abuse by a homeowner who would start and not do it. So
thank you, David.
There's money.
So
Yeah.
I would like to sort of wrap up this discussion on the Mills Act. And I think we have some direction, and let's, if you have other information that we want before our retreat on the Mills Act, will you email me and then I'll send it off to Amy, or you can just ask Amy or Vin directly. If they don't have access to that, then copy me and I will see if I can find it for us. But I do think it's one of those, the more information, the better. I do feel like, other towns have done, pilot programs and then moved into a permanent program. I think there's a lot of information out there that we can use to frame ours. And I think we do need either get it off the table or make it happen. So let's see if we can get there at our retreat. So I'd like to move on to, so Amy, do you want to go through your project more before we talk about sort of the retreat generally?
Oh, Well, if you would like to talk about the retreat, I don't have to show slides. I just had them available. Just one slide on this, which was Vice Chair Pease's memo. I don't know if Vice Chair Pease would like to, not obviously we're not doing this today, but to speak to the memo that he prepared and how he envisions discussing this at the retreat. Or
I would only say I think it's a pretty simple idea in some ways. The implementation is the big issue, but I just noted looking over the survey for the houses that are eligible for the National Register, that over 100 volunteers were trained to source most of that. They collected data and content. I don't know where that stuff was. It was done when it was still largely an analog world, but there's that validates to me at least the possibility of being able to pursue this kind of digital preservation without having to put a huge burden on city staff or a huge budget to fund and pay people to implement it. The big question is, this is pretty simple design that's here. It's easy to build something. What's really a question is, can we maintain it and sustain it over time? And that's something we really have to think about, and we need some insight from staff on, because somebody has to run it. So that's all I would say for today.
Okay. Thank you. Then, in your memo, Vice Chair Pease, you referenced the work plan. So, clearly, we submitted this to council back when it was due in, I think, July. And, we're in it now in the year. So we can maybe at the retreat just, recall the work plan and how this, our 2 to 3 goals for the year would comport with this or modify this. And then just, again, you mentioned, Vice Chair Pease, about the National Register. So just to recall, and for the public who may not be familiar, we do have 165 of the homes that were surveyed back in the survey update now 20 years ago or more, that these appeared to be eligible for the National Register. That does not mean they were added to the National Register. The State Office of Historic Preservation received the DPR forms, which is a state form, DPR 523. Those were all sent for the 165 that were eligible, and the others, up to 291 properties that were evaluated more extensively than the windshield survey. The windshield survey is what we call the potentially eligibles. So, right now, obviously, we have the policy in place from our comp plan that allows us to require property owners to get evaluation of the potentially eligibles that did not go further to ensure that they are not California Register eligible if they're proposing to demolish the homes. So that's I've reported out on that before, an active program that we're doing because we have our comp plan that established that. I don't know that I have any other slides. Yeah, just the note that we have a lot online. So if folks are interested to learn more about this program that we have, about our surveys, and then of course the link to Palo Alto Stanford Heritage, which they have some excellent photos and color, and they have all of our inventory properties on that, by address. So that's a great resource. We actually refer people to go there to see those colored photos, and it's very handy. So thanks to that volunteer group for doing that. I think that's all I had on. I do have comp plan policies that I would have available at our retreat. Again, the one that had added teeth, I say, regarding our survey is the one that we're really going gangbusters on. I do report out in our CLG report each year how many of these have been found California Register eligible. Again, not on the California Register, just eligible for listing. And I provide that to the state. So just to be clear, if there is a program that says, that we can add the local, update the local inventory, and this would be a council action to add any of those California Register eligibles and National Register eligibles to our inventory so that they would be, subject to our Palo Alto Municipal Code 1649. So, and then this is the other program that is to reassess that, Chapter 1649. So these I think are policies that that are of prime interest, in my opinion. And then of course there are the others. So we can bring these up for the retreat as well, if anyone wants to talk further about our comp plan policies. I'm going to end my presentation unless anyone wants to focus on any of these. It's not on the agenda to do that. So
Yeah, I just have a few comments. So one is 235 Hamilton. It's not on your slides, but in your report. So it says council upgraded from a category 2 to a category 3, which sounds a little backwards. So
oops,
I'm assuming that's
other way.
so. And then attachment A, under attachments, it says it was prepared by the ARB, but it was
Right.
HRB.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you,
Error.
Carolyn.
Just to
I meant to mention that and I forgot.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So wrapping up, retreat. I do think somewhere we need to, I'm not sure if we want to just incorporate the comp plan and what else we're talking about, because I think kind of our bigger targets are the Mills Act and documentation. But if anybody has thoughts on the comp plan and a discussion as a discussion item at the retreat, will you just email me and let me know? So I said earlier, I'm really hoping we can do a retreat in person. I want to meet you guys in the flesh. And I would also like to invite a few other people. Karen Holman, who has been pretty active in preservation through the ages, is expressed interest in coming to the retreat and talking to us. Since we do not have a preservation planner, I personally would like to meet the contact from the group that we use. If that could be arranged, if she could come talk to us. Amy, do you know who I'm talking about? I know you have some.
We have Paige and Turnbull, that is our on-call consultant. We also have, other consultants that we use on a cost recovery basis, including Paige and Turnbull for these historic resource evaluations. But yes, Christina Dykus is the main staff member at Paige and Turnbull that I coordinate on the program. So I could invite her to the meeting then. One other thing I thought might be of interest, because Vice Chair Pease mentioned SB 9 and SB 10. So I think we'll see where that is, whether it's been signed by the governor, because they're, I think, on the governor's desk. So it would be of interest to, what the timing is on that. But I agree with him that is a critical. If those do get signed, the city is going to have quite a bit of work to write implementing ordinances and think through what to do, including, the fact that our eligible resources are not protected under our current municipal code.
Thank you. I'm also thinking Steve Steiger, who is our city historian, would be a good person to have and come talk to us, since he knows where everything is. And I don't know how many of you have a relationship with him, but I think it's critical that we feel comfortable talking to him, because he is the resource holder in the city. And I noticed there's also another woman working with him that might be nice to invite her to, just to have them come when we're talking about board member Peace's proposal. I think that Steve might have some background for us about volunteers and availability and where documents are and that kind of information.
That would be a very good idea. He told me she's slated to take over from him at some point.
I was assuming, yeah. Okay. I think the retreat is a good opportunity for us to talk about our new work plan for the year, since the last one kind of happened while we were not paying attention, is my understanding. So I'd like to look at the last year's work plan, but also evolve it for, not necessarily change it for this year, but evolve it for our next year. I'd like to set dates for our meetings, so if everybody could have a calendar available at the retreat, so we could pick meetings at least once a month. I don't know that we want to do them twice a month, but I think we want to at least stay in contact with each other and our research problems. So I'd like to set up meetings once a month that we would definitely have, and then alternate meetings if needed. And I also would like to set a date for a meeting with council. I think that, well, I, for one, am not familiar with most people on council now, and I think it would be good for them to know our faces, know what we're thinking, and just briefly have some back and forth with them. So I think that when we set our calendar for the year, I'd like to see us also set a date for a meeting with council, or pick a few alternate dates that council could then pick from.
Yeah, that's really tough to meet with the council. I can just tell you from experience, you know this, Carolyn, from, yeah, I mean, it's their choice. Typically it happens, I don't know, in the summer is my recollection, sometimes in the late spring, but getting on their docket, getting on their radar is the first step. So good idea.
I'd like them to think we've got a heartbeat, because I think I'd like them to know we have a heartbeat in this, because I don't think this board has jack visibility in the city right now. There's just too many other complicated issues. I mean, many. So I don't think we're not even a rounding error in that.
I agree. Okay, anything else that we should talk about before we wrap up our meeting?
I'll just say I can reach out to the city. We have a new city clerk, and we used to have annual joint meetings with council and ARB and council and HRB. With the pandemic, I think that might have affected things, as in so many other areas. So I can reach out to the new clerk and see if there's a program for 2022 for joint meetings with council.
Thank you, Amy. So I hope I see all of you at the end of October, hopefully in person, but we will be in touch on that one.
Can I make a comment before we go?
Please.
I'm wondering if there's any news about a replacement for Debbie Shepherd on the board.
Amy?
The city clerk will be posting en masse vacant positions. And so that was a decision to wait for the en masse, interviews and everything for all of the boards and commissions. So hopefully this fall, October, November timeframe. So we'll just have to hobble along with 6 until.
I thought that I thought I had seen an advertisement for the position already in an email, but that was some time ago. It was right after Debbie resigned from the board. But
you're not imagining it. I saw it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you.
Well, I would like to encourage all of you on that note to reach out to anybody you think might be a good board member. Because I do think that, some of us look at the ads in the paper and some of us totally miss them. So I think if you know people that would be good on the HRB, I think that would be great to reach out to them. And on that note, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second it.
Thank you. Do we need a 1-by-1 voice vote on this one?
Not for adjournment.
No, okay, great. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. And I'll see you again soon. And
Nice
please
to see all of you.
stay in touch.
Care.
Nice to see you.